And that's really the challenge, because sometimes it doesn't look at all like what you thought it ought to, doesn't come at the time that you thought it ought to, or any of those things. But trust that in spite of its appearance, it is on the road to wherever you're going. So life is a mirror and will reflect back to the thinker what he thinks into it. So again, another statement, basically saying the same thing, this by Ernest Holmes. Life is a mirror and will reflect back to the thinker what he thinks into it. And that's really how principle works. That what we think about, we see everywhere. Just like when we see problems and mistakes everywhere, we see the extra space between the V and the I, that we start to see problems and negative things. But when we start to look for, where are the blessings? What am I here to be grateful for? What do I love about this situation or this day? That it starts to show up even more and more. And you start to see through a lens that is looking for good. So this you may have seen before. Gregg Braden, are you all familiar with Gregg Braden? He's written many books, and he is more the scientific approach to the universe and to spirit. And so, like some people translate everything they hear from the Bible into something relevant for today, he's taking everything that is principle and making it relevant for today, but can be applicable if you put the word God in instead of, let's say, life or energy when he talks about it. And he has a great example of how prayer actually works in its most magnificent way.
Prayer that has no words, it's simply a meditative prayer where we become aware of a presence around us and in the silence. And there's some dispute as to whether or not this is even a mode of prayer or not. But this is the way Western prayer researchers typically think of prayer in our world today. And as good as those modes are, and as well as they describe the way we pray, there's always been another mode, a fifth mode, that is not described in these modalities. And this is precisely what the abbot in Tibet was describing to us. He was describing a mode of prayer that's based in feeling. And he said, we must feel the feeling as if the prayer has already been answered. And in that feeling, we are speaking to the forces of creation, allowing the world to respond to us, allowing this field, the quantum hologram, the mind of God, to respond to us with what it is that we are feeling within our hearts. This mode of prayer invites us to feel as if we are participating in that peace, just as John Wheeler suggested, that we are part of all that we see. And as we feel the peace in our world or the healing in the bodies of our loved ones, we're actually empowering the field to mirror that back to us in a way that will bring those changes about in our lives and in our world. Well, this is precisely what the abbot was saying to us in the monastery in Tibet. In the early 1990s, I had the opportunity to see this mode of prayer, this feeling-based prayer, enacted in a real-time situation. And I'd like to share this story because it perhaps best describes what otherwise is a nebulous concept regarding precisely how feeling-based prayer works in our lives. During the 1990s, early 1990s, the desert Southwest was experiencing one of the worst droughts in history. And a Native American friend of mine invited me to join him one day in a place in the high deserts of northern New Mexico to share in a prayer of rain. He didn't have to ask me twice. I said, you bet, I'd love to participate and see what this prayer